In today's video, I'm going to share with you a strategy for dealing with the challenging times. It's not easy. This is still Joydaism. I'm Rabbi Hillel Brody of Yes Connections. When I decided to start talking about joy and to launch a channel and an idea which I called Joydaism, I knew that the time would come when I would face a challenge. And that is, joy is easy when things are going well. But how does that made up word, Joydaism, talk to something which is so painful? I'm speaking, of course, about the horrific tragedy that took place in Meron on Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, when 45 people, many of them young, some of them very young, were tragically killed in an accident. But I knew that the time would come when we would have to address this. And either joy doesn't apply and has nothing to say at a time like this, or maybe it does. Now, last week was too soon, and I couldn't do a video. There are times when it's just too painful to think about joy, even though we are told that we are supposed to serve God with joy. There are times we are human and there is pain. It is the death of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva that happened between Pesach and Shavuos, which leads us to treat this period of time, which really should be a time of preparing for celebration, and is a time of preparing for celebration, but yet we treat it in some ways as a period of mourning for that great loss. I went back to Rabbi Akiva, and the Talmud, when it tells the story of how Rabbi Akiva lost his 24,000 students, it then says that he went to the south and he found 5 students. There are other versions in the Medrash which say it was 7 students. He found a handful of new students and he taught them Torah. And from them, Torah was spread, and all of the Torah that we have today, all of the oral law, which we have in all of these books, comes very much from Rabbi Akiva, who passed it to these, not his 24,000 original students, but these 5 students. And then I saw something else. Lag BaOmer is a day of celebration. It's a bit of a mysterious day. It's actually not clear what it is we're celebrating. Some people, in particular, the idea of going to Meron, to the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, attributed to the fact that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died on Lag BaOmer. But others point out, or look at it as, that Rabbi Akiva's students stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, and that's what we're celebrating. Now that poses an obvious question. What are we celebrating about the fact that Rabbi Akiva's students stopped dying? They stopped dying because there weren't any left. I saw quoted in the name of the Chida, one of the relatively more recent commentaries, who said that Lag BaOmer was the day that Rabbi Akiva went to the south to find those 5 or 7 students and start again. And that's what we're celebrating. Rabbi Akiva, who had suffered so much tragedy, he witnessed the destruction of the temple, which we mourn every year during the 3 weeks, and on Tisha B'Av, on the 9th day of Av during the summer, we mourn that loss, along with other losses, on every single year. We try to remember, or not even remember, to imagine what it was like. Rabbi Akiva saw it happen. And then he had all of these students of Torah, and they all died. And he himself was persecuted and ultimately martyred at the hands of the Romans for teaching Torah in public. If anyone had an excuse to roll over and say, listen, I lost 24,000 students, I just can't go on. It was Rabbi Akiva. But he didn't. He found the strength to move on. I once heard a phrase when it comes to mysterious things, that those who say don't know, and those who know don't say. I have no idea. I cannot begin to wrap my head around the 45 special individuals who perished in such a tragic, horrific way. I don't know if Rabbi Akiva could wrap his head around his 24,000 students either. Maybe he could. He's certainly far greater than I. But I can be inspired by someone who saw such tragedy and got up somehow, found the strength somehow, dusted himself off somehow, and went and started again. And when he started again, he accomplished incredible, incredible things, which we still benefit from to this very day. The lesson of Rabbi Akiva is a strategy which we can use. Does it take away the pain? It doesn't take away the pain. But it gives us purpose. And it tells us that in spite of tragedy, we can accomplish great things. Every single one of us who is touched by this tragedy, which is every single one of us, has a responsibility to do something, to pick up and go a little forward. And the harder hit you are, the greater responsibility, although the greater challenge you have. So let us daven. Let us pray that we should never have to face a tragedy, a challenge like this again. And let us resolve to take the inspiration of the pain of the tragedy and the inspiration of Rabbi Akiva and do something small, something manageable, but something. Learn some more Torah. When I say some more, I mean like 5 minutes. Reach out to someone you haven't talked to recently, that you haven't been getting along with. Make peace with someone. The message that God is sending is individualized. Every person feels the pain differently. No two people the same. And the message, I believe, is different for every single person. But it is your job to figure out what that message is for you and to do something about it and to resolve to take a step. And with that, even in the midst of all of the challenge that we face, and even in the midst of some people are still just finishing up the Shiva for their children, their brothers, their parents. In the midst of all of that, we can march to Shavuos, which is coming this week. We can march to the acceptance of the Torah. When we said to God then, and we can say to God again, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do even before we understand. And that is Joydaism.